Hello, hello, people. Welcome to another Lunch and Learn, led by your host, Gregory. We're going to give it a few moments before we start addressing questions, but come on, pile up your questions. We down to answer them whenever y'all are ready. I take that back. I will answer them in a few moments. And then let's see here. Let me just grab all my lists over here, make sure I've got all the questions ready. So, hmm, once again, want to remind you to make sure to check out our solutions marketplace, as this is a wonderful utility tool that could provide a lot of tools for your own business, or just something you might be able to look at to break apart the process and understand how you can use decisions in a variety of ways. Right. All right, and we've got one question already, which is, um, actually, what time is it? I'll get started on that. That's a pretty simple one. How do you create a designer folder in V9? So the way that version 9 handles things is a little bit different than V8. The idea of a designer folder is that it is anything that is you can create other entities with. Like you provide, it's a folder that allows you to be able to run the other entity actions in it, like create flow, rule, form, report, that sort of thing. So if I just click right here, this is automatically creating a designer folder. This is right at the top. I realize I'm not sharing the right screen. Pardon me for just a moment. There we go. All right. So if I'm in any designer project, because you have to create designer folders in a designer project, you can't create them outside here. If I were to go into a designer project and just click this button up here, this will let me create a designer folder, and I can call it whatever I want. The only way you can actually create a non-designer folder, and I'll show you this right here, this create folder action also makes a designer folder. Clicking on this one also makes a designer folder, right? So anytime you click on the default drop-down folder here, or just at the top here, you'll make a designer folder. However, in order to be able to, pardon me, I'm just trying to make sure I've got the other questions up here. If you want to make a non-designer folder, the only way you can do that is by going to public folders, right-clicking, and selecting create folder. This will just create a standard folder, not a designer folder. Creating any other place in this project with the create folder action makes a designer folder. So a follow-up to that question. So if you're in a legacy project, you cannot create a designer folder. Yes, the idea for the legacy project is that you should be converting them into a V9 project so that you can continue to work in them and make changes to them. V9 is not designed to allow you to continue to work in projects the same way that V8 is. Because the idea of going to V9 with that outside of just the brand new features such as the AI, the formula builder, you also have all your projects distinct, right? You can have them relying on each other, but in order to make sure they're converted properly and be able to perform for their actions to add to them, you do have to make sure they're part of a project. Yep. Now, if you're in V8 with the legacy project, like if you still have that project in a V8 environment, you can make all the changes there that you want and then move it to V9. That's absolutely acceptable. Hope that answers your question. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, That was our first question for today in our lunch and learn session. Anyone else have any? And if not, I can start going over some of the other things that I've been working on in regards to training material while we wait. You know what? I'll get started on that now. Why not? So, I've got this thing here called the Three Challenges Project. This is part of the Start Linked Flow Async versus Run Flows for List, which I have been discussing a few times before. This project, and I guess I need to go back here to at least discuss this, goes over the different behavior between the Start Linked Flow Async step and the Run Flows for List step. They are both ways that you can run flow steps in an asynchronous manner and then continue on with the rest of the flow while these flow steps are handled. We have another question. Can you display a checkbox component in columns? Let me unmute you for that one so that we can get a little bit more clarity on that. And I assume you mean in a form. So I will go to the form designer once I unmute you. Give me a moment. All right. You should be good to talk. Let me exit out of this and we'll head over to forms inside of our Lunch and Learn project.
Hey, yeah, so that's an easy one as well. But I found out that if you have like a list of checkboxes, like
Mhm.
um, for example, if you have like 50 states, it's better to display them not in like one long list, but like in columns.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So if you have something that's dropping down, you want to be able to pass it into the next column if it goes beyond a certain part, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Let's see here. I'm going to bring both of these in just so we can
And
investigate their
also,
behavior.
a question would
Mhm.
be, can you drop just checkbox, just single checkbox?
Yes, absolutely.
Why is the style of this checkbox different from checkbox list checkboxes?
Because this one's designed to dynamically update with the information that you're putting into it. So, like, if I put type string and then say a static list of items here, and I'll just call this one, two.
Well, I'm talking about the actual checkbox. So that CSS, that's basically coming from your browser.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Why does this one look different than this actual checkbox? Oh, I see. Yeah, why is the CSS different? That I'm uncertain about why. There's a way to change that, of course, and I'm sure you're aware of that,
Well,
but
it's easy to change the style of this single checkbox, but it's not easy to change the list because it's coming from your browser. It's kind of like depending on the browser style, not.
interesting. So we would have to overlay a CSS with like an important tag to make sure it overruns exactly what's
Mm,
being created there.
no, you'll find out that this list checkbox style will be really hard to change.
Interesting.
And it used to be on
Hmm.
a single checkbox as well, but you've changed that on the single checkbox, so it's easy to change the style.
Interesting. Let me look into that actually. So, hmm. I'm looking into that right now. Looks like you're not the first person to have this question. Hmm. I think I have where to find that information for you, and regarding the CSS in the checkbox list, not just the checkbox. I is once I have that, I will um, I will provide that to you, and I'll also be making a post on our decisions forum to make sure you can link back and find that solution. And that forum is going to contain our lunch and learn video. So If I were to go to the decisions forum real quick, then we would be able to find that. So like if we go in here and then we go into lunch and learn category. There it is, Lunch and Learn questions. You'll find all of our previous Lunch and Learn videos are going to be uploaded here. And in that one with the YouTube video link for today, I'll make sure that I provide the solution on that because this has been done before, but it's going to take me a little bit in order to dig and find that exact working of that CSS to make sure that we can get it to function in that way. But I will make sure that I get that to you. So, going back to your first question, having these in multiple columns. Let's see here. I don't know of a way initially to do that dynamically. Like, of course, you could just create another grid box, but then you'd be outputting two different data sets, and that wouldn't necessarily be the most conducive thing. So, my thoughts go to if there are different layouts here that would allow us to do that. Let's see. The scroll panel would be a little bit tough to kind of go down the entire time. And I do want to mention if anyone else has an answer to this immediately, I'd be glad to listen, but this does seem like something that would be a bit tricky to do without like a feature request.
Uh, Basically, I've done that with CSS. Just if someone
Like
interested
if,
in this.
oh,
Yeah,
so you have
yeah,
a CSS solution, but not a way to do it in with our default steps is what you're saying.
yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I don't know if that's something that we would be able to dynamically populate without like a CSS to be able to do that. I don't think there's a feature within the checkbox list, and I don't think there's one in the checkbox sortable list either. That's the only reason I brought this up is just to confirm that this is not a different way that we can do this. And then that would allow you to drag it around, but that doesn't allow for different columns for it. Hmm. Yep, I don't think that's something that we currently have in our platform as a checkbox, just without, creating the custom CSS for it. But yeah, definitely a good question.
Uh, Another question. It would be a good feature uh, to do something like to be able to drag just like in checkbox uh, data repeater items. I've done it with JavaScript, but it was like overhead, and I know that lots of projects require that you need to kind of sort drag and drop data repeater items.
So to be able to move them around like in order, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ah, I see, I see. Hmm.
I've done that with JavaScript, but I mean it's overhead.
I see, I see. Let's see here. So we got a data repeater. And for there are people on the call. Um, so when you have a data repeater, you can let's see here. I'm just gonna need to call this something. And then our input type will just be account. Because account is easy to work with. I'm just going to put a demonstration out so that I can show everyone else exactly what is being discussed here. So here, pick from data. Actually, I don't know where you need a decimal and account. We probably just need a name, an email, and then a checkbox is active. So let's do that real quick. I'll pick from here. We got email address. Here, I'll pick name. I can actually just do account ID. That's not a problem. And then here we'll have is it called active or is active? I think it's is active. Yep, there we go. All right. So we got a data repeater of type account. I'm going to get rid of this checkbox so I can give us a little bit more space for this. And then the data name, I'll call it account. We're not going to pass anything into it, but it's just going to let us create it dynamically. Data repeater add button, we need that. Data repeater remove button. And then our add button is our add button, our remove button is our remove button. Let's go into a flow. We'll call it the same thing. Why not? They're two different entities. All right, so what is being discussed here is the idea. Let's debug. So I can add data to my data repeater, right? This is just an account ID. I'm not going to save any of this. I don't have a way to save any of this. But what is being discussed here is being able to dynamically drag different options to different positions in the data repeater. So maybe I could drag option 3 to the top here, and then the other two would dynamically push down. So that is what is being discussed in regards to the JavaScript being able to accomplish that, but as a potential feature to add to decisions to allow that drag and drop functionality within a data repeater, which sounds very cool, by the way. And then I do not believe there's a way to do that currently, but I am going to confirm. Because, yeah, you can do it with arrows. You can move up and down with certain shortcuts, but that's not necessarily a dynamic drag and drop. Yes, it does not look like that as an option currently. None visual indicator highlight row. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Thank you for bringing that up because that is a very cool feature to be able to implement into decisions. And then the move up short key would be something like I'm just gonna put E, not shift and E. I hit back E and I'll put this one D. So if we were to run this again, I'll exit out real quick. Whoops, wrong one. Debug. So if I create multiple of these, and this one's like this. So if I select E, oh, I'm sorry, it does not move it up. It just simply moves my cursor around. Yeah, some way to be able to dynamically move that around would be great. All right. Did you have any further questions about that?
Uh, no, I mean, if somebody interested,
Um, I
that was it.
apologize. I can't hear you very well at the moment.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. There we go.
I was gonna say that if somebody interested, I can share my project in forum.
I think you're phasing out again.
So
There we go. There we go.
yeah, I said I can share my project, the JavaScript in forum.
Hmm. Yeah, actually, if you can, if that's something that you'd like to share, it's something that you can send to training at support. Sorry, training at decisions.com, and then when we upload the YouTube video, I'll make sure that I run that by for the approval process to see if that's something that we're allowed to share. But like if we can, then I'll make sure that's accessible on the forum post, and people will access it there when they're looking back at the video.
Okay,
Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, just email it to training at decisions.com. I will run that by the relevant people to confirm that we can actually post that. And if we can, that's where you'll see it.
cool.
Yeah, very much appreciated. Alrighty, I see that we've had a few more people join. Does anyone have any additional questions? Did anyone have their own questions they want to ask? Let's see here. Let me make sure I have the chat up as well, just to make sure I can see everything coming through. Nothing at the moment. Okay. I'll give it a little bit more time. We're still pretty early into our lunch and learn, so I'll go back over what was being discussed before, and if no one else has any further questions after that, then maybe it's just an early lunch and learn. Save this for now. Go back. So the idea of this is the start link flow async versus the run flows for list. Comparing those two, talking about how they're different, how they work with the thread job report, which can be found under jobs and events, scheduled jobs, thread jobs. And then this is going to show all of your worker queues that are currently running in the decision system. Some of them are just going to run by default when you create decisions, and disrupting those can cause problems with decisions. However, some of them are also user created, and you can sometimes put your worker processes into one of the decisions created ones. But we do, in most cases, recommend putting them into their own separate queue. And the way that you can create queues is by, well, there are multiple ways to do it, but one such way to do that is to run a flow that runs in an asynchronous manner. So not async and wait for that. That's kind of a hybrid here. So let's go thread job async. Let's confirm what's going on in here. We got a delay step. I want to delay that a bit longer so that we have a visual representation of what's going on. This flow right here simply has a list of numbers, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, and 32. It passes these into a run flows for list step, which will address each item in that list individually and perform an operation on it. That operation being subtraction. We're just subtracting one from the number and then passing out the answer. Now you'll notice if I run this in thread job and async, we are not going to get any results back. As soon as I debug this, there's no output data. And that's because when you run something fully asynchronous, you can never expect output data from it into the same flow because that process is still running in the back end while your flow has to continue. It can't wait on that information. That's what the async and wait is for. It still splits up all of these into asynchronous threads so they don't have to run one after each other. But once it completes, you get your information out of the flow. This goes faster than a normal one because you don't have to wait for all six to run sequentially. You can split them up into their own queues and then just have a few, processes per queue. So this will wrap up in a moment. And once it does, we'll get our information back. I don't remember how long I set that to, like 30 seconds. That's why it's taking a little bit. There we go. And now we got input and output data. That being said, you can never expect the results to come out in order. Sometimes, by chance, they might. It's not a high chance, but everything's being completed asynchronously on the back end, so it just throws it into a list when it puts it out because they're not completing in the manner in which they were put in, so you can't expect the list to come out to be in the same order as the list going in. So if I'm gonna change this back and we're going to change it to thread job async. We're going to debug it, and then I'm going to exit out of this and then go to that thread job report. And you'll see, I think it might have been near the top. Yeah, the customer queues. That's what I called each of them was customer queue. So there are 4 queues because I specified 4 threads, and we have 6 different processes. The reason we have 6 is because we have 6 items in the list. This will run as many processes as are needed per item in the list. So each list item is going to its own flow. You have 10 items in the list. It's going to create 10 different processes. So that's how that works. As a building onto that, which I did not show last time, we have 3 challenges with this project that you'll be going through in order to learn how to work with these steps yourselves, troubleshoot them, fix common threads, and all of those scenarios will be given to you on Basecamp, our learn.decisions.com. I won't spoil the fun for y'all. All right. I'm not seeing any more questions. It seems like quite an early one, but if we just don't have many people, I think we'll just end it early. So, yes.
Everyone. Yeah, what's the reason behind not being able to use inform session in on login flow?
What's I'm sorry, I'm having a tough time hearing you again. I think it's something with your mic.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I can. That's much better.
Yes. So What's the reason behind not being able to use end from session in on login flow?
End form session on login
So
flow.
for example,
Interesting.
if I would like to redirect somebody,
Mm-hmm. It's not letting you use an end form session there.
yes, because on login is async.
Oh, interesting. It's not allowing synchronous steps in an async.
Yep.
Oh, that's exactly what it is, and that would count as a synchronous step. Ooh, all right. Well, that would be the reason behind it, but the more important question is what's the workaround? Let's see here. How can we make sure that it links users to the proper place without an end form session? Hmm. And for other people on this call, let me give you the provided context from yesterday's Lunch and Learn. What we are trying to do is a user is coming in through an SSO login through Okta or OpenID or some sort of SSO provider. That SSO provider is directing the user to decisions, and because it is through the SSO provider that is directing them and not through the decisions login, the provider is not able to dynamically send the users to different URLs with different parameters based upon whatever type of user URL they're clicking from or different kinds of user information. So it cannot dynamically assign them to different home pages through that Okta or OpenID or, Entra ID URL. So the question becomes, how do we dynamically direct users to their proper landing page based upon where they're coming from, like what URL they're clicking in a different application outside of decisions? And the proposed solution was to cache where they're coming from, have decisions pull from that cache once they're directed to their homepage through Okta, and then use an end form session step to open a URL. And for those on this call, let me actually pull up an end form session step so you all can have a visual here of what's going on. Have an end form session step that would open a URL, not in a new window, that the user would then be navigated to in decisions, or just navigate to a specific folder ID and page name based upon logic from the is it get cache? Yeah, get from cache step. The problem that we are running into is that this is all occurring in the login flow. So they would need an end form session here that is not functioning because the login flow is not allowing for synchronous steps, which this counts as a synchronous step. I believe the workaround would be to have the end form session on a default landing page inside of a run flow part that automatically directs the user from there once they hit that loading page instead of the login URL. So they're directed to the default loading page that everyone gets directed to, but it pulls from cache there in a non-asynchronous flow or a synchronous flow in the run flow part step. Is that making sense as far as a workaround for that? So if I were to create a page here, same one as last time. This is the page, and we have a run flow part. By the way, this is designed to run automatically for any user that enters into this. So you have a run flow part. We create a flow here. I'll call this the redirect flow. And from here, the user is navigated to this. The value of where they are coming from that was stored in cache is retrieved from either a default decisions cache or a new cache that was created somewhere in the system. There's a cache instance name. The key to that cache, that information must be provided to in order to fetch it from the cache. And then the end form session step is applied here to navigate the, I apologize, wrong one, not display a message, to navigate the user to that proper dashboard, which a dashboard is just a combination of a folder and a page. So instead of running this during the login flow, this is run onto a default landing page that all users are directed to, but because the cache is not cleared, you're still able to pull where they're coming from the cache, and they get redirected automatically on this page without even clicking a button. Would that make sense uh, as far as a solution, or is that what you tried before and you mentioned you got the problem?
It makes sense for me. Although I do have another question around the SSO. So when somebody clicks on a link in application A that redirects to decisions, decisions is not authenticated. Uh, that user decisions
Right.
creates a request to identity provider.
Right.
So at that moment, can I modify that request? So for example, if I can put those URL parameters somewhere uh, to authentication identity server, and then it will just bounce back to decisions, so I don't have to do some shenanigans with the JavaScript and cookies.
I do not know off the top of my head if you can dynamically alter the request URL to Okta or Entra ID or whoever the SSO provider is with I guess I should mention I don't know if you can alter that dynamically, and I'll show everyone on call the place where that's set in place. So in the settings, in the I don't have the SAML module installed, so this is the same problem I ran into last time trying to get to that, and for some reason it's just not pulling up here. I don't know why I don't see it. I'm connected to internet and everything, so this should not be a problem. I am uncertain where the SAML module has run off to. I will hunt that down with tenacity and try to find that. But in your decision settings, when you have that module, you configure everything statically as far as where the authentication URL is going to, what the redirect URL is going to within the decision settings, and that is not typically a setting that is updated dynamically. Now, you could, I don't know if I can officially recommend this per se, but I can at least say it's possible to be able to fetch that entity where that's stored, like that database type that holds that information in decisions via a query, and perhaps make some alterations there. But how to do that dynamically within a flow before the user is even authenticated into decisions is something I am not certain how to do.
Well, the point here is that not to update the actual integration setting. The point is that, for example, in OpenID, you can put something into state and you can put whatever you want, and after authentication, it will just bounce back to you.
Hmm. I see. I see. I don't know that, and I don't know if that would vary per SSO provider, like how to set it into that state. I
Well,
can look in.
in OpenID providers, it's state. In Okta, it's relay state,
Relay state. Mm.
and it's pretty much the same concept.
Okay. Um, I can ask about that. That's what I wish to say is I don't know that for certain. I don't know exactly how to update that parameter before the user is logged into decisions via that reaching out to authentication provider. I don't know what step or if there's a flow that runs before then. There might be a system-wide flow that's created when you import that module, or maybe just one by default, but I'm not certain what that would be, and I'd have to investigate that once I get the SAML module installed. So, to officially answer your question, it may be possible. I'm not sure how it would be done, though. And I will look into that and get back to you. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a good question, though. It really is. It would be something that would be very interesting if you can do that. And it'd be, well, it'd be really cool. No, thanks for asking. Much appreciated. All right. Peyton, I see that you have a question as well. I'm gonna go to that. Let's see. I have a bar chart part on a page that is being populated by a report and its subtotal values. The bar chart appears to be working properly, but if the subtotal value is less than 1, for example, 0.85, the number label on the bar shows it as 850 m or 850 meters, or instead 850 yeah, instead of 0.85, but when I hover over the bar, it shows a correct value. Is there a way to change it so that it shows a correct value? Let me unmute you here because I think I know exactly what you're talking about here, but let's create one from scratch, all right?
Yeah, so I don't know what the M stands for or why it's multiplying the value to make it 850 instead of 0.85. Uh, there shouldn't be
Interesting.
any correlation between meters, minutes, or anything like that. So don't know what that stands for.
I'm not certain either. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Do you know if you're saving that particular subtotal as a double, as an integer? Well, it wouldn't be an integer, as a decimal.
I believe it is a decimal. So in the
Okay.
report, the subtotal is a number with two decimal places, and it's just a sum of the values from groups.
Okay. And you said it's a bar chart part?
Yes. I think it's just bars.
Just bars. Okay, gotcha. I'll put that here. Okay. And we'll have to create a report for this, and we'll have to create some different kinds of information for that. So let's do that real quick. Exit, save. Let's make a data structure. Let's make a case entity because those are really easy to just create on the fly. All right. And this will just be
I don't know if it's important. I am grouping on two different columns.
okay. So we're gonna need more than two columns here. So we'll need I'll call it decimal. We'll call this name. Just three different things that we can put out there real quick. That'll work.
I would say instead of integer, do uh, I don't know, project or something. So it'd be by project, then by name, and then the decimal.
Okay. Sounds good. You got it. Let's create a quick flow just so we can create those. And we'll just do it manually instead of trying to set up the whole dynamic process. This will probably be the quickest way to do that. All right, and we want to make sure that we have a few with the same name here. So extension data, build from data. I'll do the exact same 0.85 here that you're doing before. Oh wait, you're using report subtotal, so it has to add up to that, right? Or add up to something less than name, and then all right. And I'll create multiple of those so we can add them together. And then parent folder ID, I'll just pick a random one that's in our system right now. Put it in the data structures report. All right. And now let's run this once. Let's run it again. Let's change some values so we have some different projects and stuff to look at here. I'll just make sure that, oh, there we go. And then this one, let's make that decimal a lot smaller so that way we can actually add up to it and not pass one. We'll run this flow, and then we'll have one more by a different project. All right. Now let's get to that report. Or sorry, let's go with the page. Report page. Create new report. Grab that item. And then let's see, we need project first, right? And then by name. Project, name, and then decimal. And then we are grouping it first by project, and then within that we're grouping it by name, right?
Yeah.
All right. And now we just need to add the subtotals, results, subtotals, add, and we want the sum of the decimal format, decimal places. We want two, and I'm going to hit OK. And let's give that a save. Oh, it needs a title, doesn't it? Hold on. It's called bars. Now we'll add this to a page and see what it looks like. Wrong one. Oh, that's fine. I never fixed that anyway. I never added that. And then let's add a page. And let's see how this looks. So, I see. I see what you're saying. Interesting.
Well, as if that's and
That
so
is
say if
some.
it was one, or if that one was 0.85, it would show as 850 M instead of that one there.
I see what you're saying now. Yep. I think I think I just misconfigured that on the page real quick. So let's do that. Or let me check the report. Let me make sure that no, we did the right sum here. We're grouping on the wrong thing on the report on the bar, aren't we? I bet I selected the wrong thing. Not
Ah,
count, sum. There it is. That's what it is. Let's try that again. There we go. There we go. So hovering over this one shows the right one, but this shows 950M. Interesting. So how do we fix that? So the series is spitting out a fixed number. That number is a decimal. Base colors. Might be on view actually. No, that's just CSS classes. Base part content. Interesting.
just
How do we
notice
make
those
sure?
number formats when you scroll down. I don't know if that matters.
Number format? I was
Scroll
looking.
down a little bit more. It should be right under, or a little bit, yeah, right there. Number formats is,
Oh, I
yep.
see. I see. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's how mine is configured too. I don't know if that matters.
Tooltip format is fixed. What happens if I do this on fixed? That might be it right there. Hold on.
Ah,
There we go. It
that's
was, that's strange.
interesting.
It was rounding it off because when you went to number format in the default example, it had the large M, which I'm assuming is here for thousand or million. I'm gonna guess probably million. So you have it almost rounding it off inside of this, or just putting it in not quite scientific notation per se, but just a different kind of notations inside of fixed. Number gives you a different notation in fixed. That's very interesting.
Yeah,
So is that,
maybe yeah, that's all good.
hmm, very interesting. Yeah. Well, fixed format would be the way to go about that. I'm uncertain why numbers results in that. That's very interesting. But yeah, that's how you fix it at the very least. Doesn't really explain why it occurs, but it does explain how to fix it.
That's good.
All right. All
Thank you.
right. Oh, absolutely. All right, and we have another question. If you have time, can you demo how the CSV to database step works? Ooh, I've never used that step, so let's figure that out real quick, shall we? CSV to DB, CSV to database mapping, database type. What? Comma delimiter, input file. So the input file is going to be our CSV that we create. Why is database type listing all of the possible types here? Because I don't think local connection is its own type. Database to CSV output type.
The problem with this tab that I've seen that I'm not sure why, if you have like a Excel spreadsheet and you map that to database, which you can do in show item mapping editor,
Hmm.
uh, this step does not output anything, and also it doesn't save data from spreadsheet to database.
So it doesn't save data to the database that's specified, and it also does not output anything. I wouldn't expect this to output anything, but that is very strange that it's not showing how to do that. I'm looking into this right now on our end. Let's see here. So it's supposed to automatically insert it into the database. That's the intended intention behind it. Let's see here. I'm not certain why it's not saving. Are you actually I do have a question. When you're testing it, are you running the step on its own or are you running it in the debugger?
I've tried in debugger.
Hmm. It might be one of those that only works when running it in full, but that is kind of I need to look into that to confirm. So why is database type a drop down? That's not that's like accessing all your types. It's very interesting. That should be a type on its own, right? No, interesting. So what happens if I put string? What is it even? It's not going to like that, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. It needs to be an ORM entity. I will need to look into exactly how this functions, but as far as like setting it up, but the idea behind it would be that you are trying to use this to map it into particular fields into a database columns or, like columns and rows, not to output data from it, which doesn't really help with the setup very much. Yeah. Let me go get into this. So the two things I want to check are, and I'm going to write these down as well. So can we update a state parameter in the request URL from decisions to the Okta or SSO provider? And how do we use the CSV to database mapping?
I know that a workaround to that and basic use case for this is like let's say I would like to create lookup table in decisions and just drop an Excel file or a CSV file and populate that database
Hmm.
table. The workaround I think would be uh, to create a data type database stored from CSV. And then you can just use that step and it will save data into a table. But I'm not sure why this specific step does not work.
Right, because yes, you can absolutely do that. You can set it up to be able to then store that in the database directly with not CSV to object mapping, but yeah, with not using this step, but just kind of doing a workaround in order to bring in the CSV data, map it to the correct, table functionality, which would then save. But yeah, what we need to figure out is exactly how this step is supposed to function, especially with database type. I have a place that I can ask that, and I can get back to you with an answer regarding that. I want to make sure I've got both those written down now, so I will make sure that I'm on top of those.
I mean, creating a data type database stored from CSV uh, would be easier.
Hmm.
I just found that this specific step does not work. If you go out and create types from CSV, if if you close the flow,
Oh, I see, I see. And then go to here and then not here. Where is
uh, user defined and types from CSV. Oh no, XML JSON CSV. Sorry.
Oh, okay, yeah, there we go, there we go. All right, that makes more sense. Yeah, here we go. Create types from CSV. Yeah, then you just have the default types that you can just mess around with, as you would in decisions with other data structures, and then just save them from there. That would give you a little bit more leeway as far as if you actually wish to use the data in other ways.
Yeah, and for this one you can specify create database table for type.
Yep. And then we just paste the CSV in here, and that'll create it from scratch, and then you can map from there.
Yep.
Cool. Absolutely. I still want to check why the other one isn't working, but this is definitely something that can be done. And then we could also just drag it from here as well. That would work. All right. Yeah. No, good question. Just very interesting things in our product that are worth exploring. All right. I think that might do it for a lunch and learn then, as we are approaching the end here. thank you all for coming. We very much appreciate you coming in, you know, sharing what your questions are, working on together, and then tomorrow Robert will be leading our final one for the week, and that will wrap it up. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.